It's really interesting to kind of look at the reactions to some of the software shown off at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, because a lot of it has been very well received, a lot of it's been poorly received, and a lot of it is quite a lot of it actually are things that people aren't really talking about at all. Right now everybody's trying to go after like everybody welcome tour on Nintendo Switch. It's like $10. It's not a big deal. The seething about it is unwarranted. But people are freaking out about it because it's just another thing to freak out about it. The freak out about it's pathetic, and it does need to be addressed. That like people people really need to stop seething about video games costing real money. Okay, like yes, you are supposed to work a job and pay for things with real money. It's not complicated. So yeah, everybody welcome tour has been like kind of attacked for that reason, and it really does need to be addressed. That like no, it's not an issue, it's not a problem, not a big deal at all. But like the thing that really interests me though is like the universal contempt that people are showing towards Dragon Drive, the new IP from Nintendo, which is like wheelchair basketball. I've seen a lot of people call it woke. I've seen a lot of people call it slow and boring. And to me, like it looks kind of like a Wii Sports thing where it's clearly a tech demo, demonstrating like the mouse controls and how they function and how you can use them and stuff like that. Clearly it's a tech demo for that, and yet nobody really cares. Like instead of like, take into consideration this is like introducing people to the new technology, that it has a new control scheme, all anybody can do is just scream about the wheelchairs. Like I just saw like Josh Dale, you might know him as like Laura Kate Dale. He's like some guy who I don't know, calls himself Laura for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what this man is thinking, but yeah, he's that like weird guy who like went to a theater and like stuck his dick into a box of popcorn. He's the guy who like leaked released all that early information about Mario Rabbids like back in 2016, right? So Josh is like this guy who's been around for a while, and he's going on Twitter like acting like, oh man, I just went to the Nintendo event in London, probably. He's in the UK. This man is based in the UK. I went to the UK, to the UK show, and they told me that they don't call them wheelchairs, they call them vehicles. And like he's clearly like trying to get a rise out of like woke Twitter, out of this mindset, like, oh no, how dare they call wheelchairs vehicles? It's like it's so obviously forced and so like obviously insane that we do really need to take a step back and like really analyze like why this game is being like analyzed, and why like whether or not like that over like skepticism is warranted. And like the more I think about it, the more I think it's not true. Because like when you really think about it, when people are seething about this, they try and say like, oh, it's not going to have a lot of content, it looks basic, it looks like Nintendo Switch Sports. And to me, I'm just kind of like, hell fucking yeah, I love Nintendo Switch Sports, I want more Nintendo Switch Sports. That is a good thing for me. And to the community at large, like Nintendo Switch Sports is seen as this like absolute low point in the Nintendo Switch 2 lifespan, Nintendo Switch lifespan. But me personally, I thought the game was like spectacular. So when you compare a game negatively to, when you compare a game to Switch Sports and try to say that makes it bad, that's gonna get me hyped for it. Because if you're the same kind of dipshit, low IQ, like mongoloid who like went after Nintendo Switch Sports to begin with, because you couldn't figure out how to play it, that I think like normal people are gonna have a great time with it. You know, like again, I've been a big advocate for Nintendo Switch Sports since it came out. I don't know if I am the biggest advocate for it, but I've been very vocal about this, like very openly opposed to like the general consensus on that game, that like anybody attacking these games for not being very complex or not having a lot of content are clearly missing the point. And there's a couple more like Nintendo games that seem to be getting like hit with the same kind of allegations. Tomodachi Life, WarioWare, Rhythm Heaven, just to name a few. You know, like anything that isn't like some big hardcore thing is seen as like something to be skeptical of. And I suppose Everybody Welcome Tour is the same way as well. You know, because I think they said it's going to have like real games in it. You know, that demonstrate the technology. You know, it's another tech demo. So like, what exactly is wrong with that? You know, like it's one of those things that like I do think we really need to talk about more, is that like we may not be getting people who are like going and getting their first impressions on these games might not be the best sources of information in regards to them. We've seen this to a certain extent with Mario Kart World, actually. I think I talked about this already, but there was a big narrative when that game was first shown off, and they showed off the open world stuff. How you had like a bunch of people like immediately coming out, like, "Oh, it looks completely empty. There's nothing to do," and it was very apparent to any of us who actually follow Nintendo news that they just weren't showing us anything. You know, like it was showing us everything, right? Like again, they had a major direct scheduled for the 17th, so like I don't understand why like people seriously tried freaking out about it. You know, it's again, like I'm certain there will be a lot of content in that game. I'm sure like all of the people's misgivings about it will be completely and totally debunked. You know, the game's going to be very well received, and like, but that doesn't stop the fact that there was such a huge push initially to try and like take away from this game, to try and convince people that it's not going to be good, that it's not going to be worth playing, that it's not something that like we should be excited for. And I do think that as Nintendo fans, we do need to start acknowledging that this kind of mindset is damaging to the company and damaging to our communities. Because after all, you should be allowed to say that I like Nintendo Switch Sports without having like people try and dogpile you, like trying to talk about like I don't know, sports mates not being as good as me's or whatever. Like it's all hyperbolic like nonsense that really needs to like be pushed back up against in the community. You know, and I do that is kind of my view of like Drag Drive. You know, looking at it like it is the Wii Sports S tech demo. You know, this is something that I'm sure is going to have an audience that that are going to appreciate it for what it is, that that are going to have fun with it. I'm sure it's at the very least going to be a fun game. You know, whether or not it's like the best game ever, like I do think people need to get in their heads. It doesn't need to be. Right? Like it's a game that Nintendo decided to make, and it's something that you can buy if you want or not. You know, like again, if you're really not interested, you don't have to buy it. But if that's the case, like you certainly don't have to sit there and try and make things up about it either. You know, that's kind of my mindset on it, is that there are so many good things coming to Nintendo Switch 2 right out of the gate. Like there's just no use worrying about the things you're not interested in or don't want to support. You know, if you don't want to support Everybody Welcome Tour for Nintendo Switch or Drag Drive, you don't have to. But please do not attack those of us who do.